I want to tell you a story. My girlfriend hates cycling. Ever since childhood, it's been nothing but torture for her. Now, don't get me wrong, my girlfriend is not a lazy person. She actually likes to go swimming, occasionally runs, loves to hike. But cycling, that's forever been her nemesis. Yet every day, as a family doctor, she has to cycle to her practice. Through the rain, the wind, the hail, welcome to the Netherlands, right? Now recently, she bought an e-bike, an impressive piece of technology. Now she still cycles the same annoying distance to work, but now with significantly less effort. Now I have to confess something. I actually sometimes borrow her e-bike. But unlike my girlfriend, I love to cycle. In fact, I'm an avid mountain biker. So why would I want to use her e-bike? I use her e-bike when I want to travel greater distances. I use it to maybe reach new destinations. Or maybe I just want to get there sooner so I can conserve some energy. Now you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the concept of AI? Quite a lot actually. Because in my story today, the AI is the e-bike for our thinking. And we live in a world where AI is increasingly taking over tasks, cognitive tasks, that we used to perform ourselves, right? Now here's the thing. I'm a teacher, I'm a writer, and in both those roles, I enjoy working with AI. However, critics warn me. They say, be careful, Barend. If you outsource too much thinking to AI, you might become lazy, right? Mentally lazy. And you know what? They actually have a point. Studies have shown that if you rely excessively on technology to do your thinking for you, you might indeed become dependent and maybe in the end lose the ability to flex those cognitive muscles yourself. Yet, reality is much richer, more nuanced, and far from black and white. Just like how me and my girlfriend use the same technology, the e-bike, in different ways, the outcome of using a technology such as AI also largely depends on how you use it. Well, of course, I hear you thinking AI is not neutral. No technology ever is neutral. But how we choose to engage with it matters tremendously in the outcome. Now, this brings me to the core concept of what I want to discuss with you: cognitive offloading. Cognitive offloading means that we outsource our thinking to technology in such a way that we might have less cognitive load. But the downside is we might also lose the ability to think for ourselves. Now, this isn't a new thing. In fact, we've been doing it for centuries. We, for example, use books to store knowledge. We use calculators to do math for us. And we use navigation apps to direct us to new destinations. And each of these offload tasks, cognitive tasks with different functions. However, there's always a trade-off. Heavy reliance on calculators might weaken your own math capabilities. Excessive use of navigational apps might influence your spatial awareness. And maybe you've heard of the Google effect, meaning that if you can look something up, why bother remembering it, right? Yet, at the same time, all of these technologies I just mentioned, they also help us to do more complex calculations. They help us to reach new destinations more efficiently. And, well, it's very helpful to find the information very quickly in the moment you really need it. So cognitive offloading doesn't automatically lead to cognitive deterioration. It rather challenges our thinking, or maybe even transforms it. Now consider two people doing a complex math problem. One uses only his brain power, the other one uses a pen and a paper. The second person might solve it faster and even more accurately than the first one, not because they're thinking less, but because they're thinking differently. Using external tools to extend their cognitive abilities. So again, it's not that our thinking crumbles as soon as we outsource something, but it does change. And exactly that change requires awareness. Now it's interesting here to draw a parallel with physical tasks. We've always been eager to do that. Think, for example, to cranes and bulldozers that allow us to build structures like this. Impossible to do so with pure human muscle, right? Yet, we also choose to go to the gym. Why? To keep our bodies in shape, right? We do that consciously, or at least people who value their bodies choose to do so consciously. They deliberately create what you might call desirable difficulties, struggles we consciously choose to stay fit. It's the classic principle of use it or lose it. So why don't we approach cognitive tasks in the same way? What if we choose consciously which mental tasks we outsource to technologies such as AI, and which ones we deliberately practice ourselves? Better yet, what if AI offers new ways to create the struggle, creating maybe the mental flexing where AI, like an e-bike, actually helps you to reach new heights? For example, when I created this talk, I actually used AI to sharpen my thinking. I questioned my arguments, I explored different perspectives, and I asked for instant feedback on my talk. Not to do all the work for me, but to actually bring me further than I could before. So no, the answer to whether AI makes you mentally lazy is not a black or white answer. Yet I do sometimes see this black and white reasoning. We've actually become quite strict. I've actually done this myself as well. As if outsourcing thinking to AI is inherently bad. Let me give you an example. When I was talking to a friend recently, he was using AI for a creative writing task. And I asked him skeptically, aren't you afraid you'll lose your creativity? He laughed and he said, well, Barend, here's the problem. You're assuming that I am creative, let alone want to be creative. AI isn't a shortcut for me. It actually gives me an opportunity for the first time in my life to have a decent creative writing output. Ouch, that got me thinking, and it really hit home. Because who am I to demand that everyone must always engage in mental effort in every area? Isn't that just my normative bias speaking? Of course, there is a real risk here. People who aren't intrinsically motivated can use AI to bypass thinking entirely. But the question remains, is it my place to judge that as universally wrong, right? Different people have different priorities and also have different strengths. So the tendencies we bring to technology use are deeply personal. Moreover, outsourcing certain cognitive tasks can even yield surprising results. In a recent experiment, researchers asked two groups of students to brainstorm about all the creative uses for a simple paperclip. One group brainstormed alone, the other group used AI. Unsurprisingly, the AI group actually generated significantly more ideas, but they also felt less creative. The solo group, however, produced far fewer ideas, but they did report feeling very creative. Clear as day, right? You might say. Outsourcing thinking reduces your creativity. But these researchers found an unexpected finding. They saw that students that were using AI had actually shifted their cognitive efforts from generating ideas to evaluating and refining them. A different, but equally demanding mental skill. Using AI hadn't eliminated their thinking, it had transformed it. Now, as a teacher, this makes me question, how do we define and value different cognitive skills? Perhaps the generation of young people that are growing up right now will be developing new capabilities of using AI to, for example, formulate new questions, develop skills in discernment and synthesis and evaluation. Maybe they are becoming like conductors who don't play every instrument in the orchestra, but know exactly how to get the best out of each player. But here lies a fundamental challenge in education. When students are externally motivated by grades, certifications, judgments from maybe parents or teachers, rather than intrinsic learning, they will often choose the path of least resistance. That's a logical option to choose from. And not only that, they might also lack the knowledge and skills to actually make the right choice, ending up using AI merely to reach the same destination with less effort than before, potentially undermining their own development. And to address this, I think we need to go beyond just rethinking our assessments and adapting them. I think we need to determine which cognitive skills should first be developed without AI assistance, while at the same time looking into, can we create time for a controlled confrontation with AI, where students can learn in what situations AI can offer a shortcut and in what situations it becomes a springboard for learning. Now, this brings me to an additional insight, because another research shows that working effectively with AI, and I emphasize here effectively, actually requires significant cognitive abilities. For example, you have to clearly articulate what you want. Secondly, you have to break down complex tasks into manageable steps. And thirdly, you have to be able to assess the output of AI tools. These all demand different cognitive skills. For example, reflective ability. You need to have language skills. You need to have world knowledge. You need to be digital literate. And when using AI in this way, it doesn't necessarily replace thinking, but it actually challenges, strengthens, and maybe transforms it. But to learn all this, it doesn't come by itself, right? Students need an educational environment where they can develop both the motivation to make the right choice and the skill set to transform that motivation into purposeful action. And this requires rethinking why and how we teach, how we assess, and how we cultivate skills in an AI-enhanced world. And remember, like I said, it's never black and white. Everyone approaches technology different. The perfectionist student might use AI to check every detail of their work, maybe even spending more time than before, whereas the pragmatic student races through with minimal effort. Like I said, AI amplifies existing tendencies. For my girlfriend, the e-bike made a dreaded task manageable. For me, it broadens possibilities. And sometimes I deliberately choose my mountain bike and just go cycling just for the sheer enjoyment of the exertion itself. A choice my girlfriend, by the way, finds utterly baffling. But does that mean that I lead a better life than her? I don't think so. I don't think so. She sometimes, for example, struggles through complex medical literature. I would be happy to delegate to AI, right? We each choose different domains for challenge and for shortcuts. So, technology use is always about who we are, when we use it, our intentions, our goals, our habits, our characters. And therefore, the next time that you face the choice between offloading a cognitive task, maybe to AI or another technology, or doing it yourself, I think you should ask 3 questions. Do I want to make an annoying task bearable? Do I want to reach new destinations? Or do I choose consciously for the mental struggle just because I want to keep my brain and my mind fit? Making the right and maybe balanced choice, I think that is the challenge of our time. And this requires education that consciously builds in those desired difficulties, those productive struggles with and without AI. So young people can still learn to recognize that sometimes the mental exercise, like physical exercise, is worth the effort. And in other situations, the shortcut offered by cognitive offloading helps explore entirely new horizons. So to conclude, just as we Dutch brave the weather and the wind and the hail and the rain, sometimes with an e-bike, sometimes through our own pedaling, and sometimes by just leaving the bike at home and walk, we must navigate the new digital landscape filled with AI with similar intent and wisdom. Because I think it's not AI that makes us dumber. Dumb choices makes us dumber. Thank you.